Grief. It's a difficult process for everyone. No matter the situation, everyone has a different way of coping with it. And there are those that are able to channel that grief into passion to help them cope. And no other game hits that note like the one that we are talking about today. Tales of Kenzera ZAU. Tales of Kenzera ZAU is an interesting game that I planned on covering because after playing it to completion, about a good 8 hours max, I came to an interesting conclusion. Tales of Kenzera ZAU is the perfect example of the phrase, wrong place, wrong time. What do I mean by that, you may be wondering? Well, to explain that would be for me to give a little bit of a background. In December of 2023, actor Abubakar Salim, known for Raised by Wolves and Assassin's Creed Origins, and most recently, House of the Dragon, went on stage at the Game Awards to talk about and pitch a game that he was working on 4 years ago. The game was pitched as a story about the loss of his father and was meant to be an ode to not only his father, but to those who we have loved and lost. Now this sounds initially like a very sweet and touching game premise. You could tell that Abubakar was very passionate about this product and cared for his father in the process. So it sounds like a recipe for success, right? Well, it wasn't until a month or two before release before controversy struck. And the reason for that controversy happened, as well as the reason why this game would then later get the good old game industry touch of death, is Sweet Baby Inc. For the uninitiated, Sweet Baby Inc. is a narrative and consultation studio based in Canada that's main objective is to tell enriching and diversifying stories to make the industry more fun and more inclusive. Now that initially sounds pretty tame to me. I am of the belief that so long as you are not causing any harm and you genuinely want to tell stories to be more inclusive, by all means, have at it. Seems rather harmless. Until you throw in the fact that their name and writing is tied to gaming blunders like Suicide Squad. Their employees have publicly been known as some of the most unprofessional people within the industry, and also a leaked conversation involving on how they terrify these companies with the thought of being cancelled if they don't get their way. And yeah, it's safe to say they shot themselves in the foot with this one.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
As if it couldn't get any worse, Cabrutos, sorry if I butchered your name, the guy who created the website dedicated to letting people know what games are tied to Sweet Baby Inc., made a tweet talking about how Tales of Kenzera ZAU was on that list. You factor that in together, coupled with the infamous Twitter activist 101 tactic of going, oh, I'm gonna buy multiple copies of this to piss off the wastists, and you got a horrible concoction that pretty much sealed this game's unfortunate fate. Steam charts showed that its highest player count is up to almost 300. Yikes. As a result, the game unfortunately faded into obscurity and didn't see much spotlight from a lot of the general public. Oh, and it also doesn't help that it was released exactly 3 days before Stellar Blade. I mention all of this to not only give context, but also to say, it just all sucks to hear. So many people that I know refuse to buy the game based off principle, and I don't blame them at all. Sweet Baby, to me, comes across not as genuine activism. They are fearmongers, nothing more. However, that's not what matters to me. Instead, I'm going to do something that Twitter activists refuse to do. Actually play a game that they are talking about. So I'm going to dissect the game on its own merits because it's actually a really great game. It's actually a very fun Metroidvania platformer with a lot of heart and a lot of soul. So let's not delay any further and put our masks on and journey along for this ride. This is my love letter to Tales of Kenzera ZAU.
My story began at the end of a world I once knew.
The game opens up with a tribute to those we loved and lost, as well as a simple phrase.
Every story begins at the end of another.
We then cut to a young boy named Zuberi as he is still grieving over the loss of his father. His mom calls to him and talks to her son about their loss, and also shows him a book that his father was writing before his final moments. When he asks what it's about, his mom couldn't tell him. All that she could tell is, maybe it's for you to find out. He decides to take a look and read the book his father wrote. Thus begins our story. You are then introduced to ZAU, a young shaman of Imandla who, after the loss of his father, pleads and calls upon Kalunga, the god of death. He is told that there are 3 great spirits who have denied him. ZAU asks that in exchange for these great spirits, that he would bring back his father. Kalunga sees a lot of spirit in a desperate boy with a desperate plea and agrees to the deal, but says he must prove his worth, that he is capable of such a task. And thus the main quest has begun and is established. The main quest has you going and putting down 3 great spirits and putting them to rest. Impundulu, the great spirit of the sky, Kikiyaun, the great spirit of nature, and Gagorib, the great spirit of mankind. As you go through the game, you will meet each of these spirits, and with death in tow, in order for them to finally rest. If you couldn't tell by now, one thing I like right out of the gate is the art style. The entire world of Tales of Kenzera is extremely gorgeous. The art direction's impeccable, the environments are incredibly diverse and really beautiful, and the music is at minimum pretty good, and at maximum outstanding. There have been many times where I was legitimately getting immersed, and you will too as the game continues. The way how this game's culture is represented here is incredible, and you can tell there was a lot of details put into it. For a first-time effort from a starting studio, they did incredible at setting a very strong first impression. But now that I lay the foundation for the main quest and world building, let's talk about the gameplay. As a game, Tales of Kenzera ZAU is a classic Metroidvania platformer focused on both range and melee combat. Since you are a shaman with the god of death by your side, this journey certainly won't be easy as you now become a walking target for the creatures you will be facing. You'll need the right tools for the job, in which you are given plenty of. ZAU has 2 masks he uses in battle, the Mask of the Sun and the Mask of the Moon. The Moon Mask specializes on projectiles and freezing opponents for long-range combat and traversal, and the Sun Mask focuses on melee combat and fire attacks to go for quick punishment. But what makes it so unique is that you can switch in between masks mid-fight, and that leaves the door open for crazy combo potential. You could also upgrade these masks with an albeit small skill tree that can be achieved by gaining Spirit. Spirit is gained by either defeating enemies, setting off combos, or by destroying these objects that will give you a ton of Spirit so that they can be applied to adding new skills. You also can gain health by having moments to reflect. ZAU will find some small areas inside trees where he reflects on things within his life, be it his father, small moments when he remembers a good moment with his father, etc. And these give you extra health. There are also moments where you will encounter these challenges that allow you to gain trinkets that will give you unique benefits like boosting your spirit gain, regenerating health, and so on and so forth. All of this is really great on its own, but what elevates it further is the level design. The way the levels are designed are so brilliant that it keeps the overall gameplay moving. Movement is the main focal point of the game, as they give you a lot of tools to use as the game continues. After every level, you will encounter these statues that will give you a unique weapon or tool necessary to traverse the levels. These include hooks that propel you into higher levels, the ability to burst through walls, glide for a small period of time, and freeze waterfalls to jump and climb. There's so much that the game gives you, and it never gets old, and it keeps the combat moving. And even more so, there's a lot of crazy environmental hazards that you'll need to watch out for, ranging from lava to spikes that'll kill you instantly. That's about the one thing I can say though, is that sometimes the platforming is iffy. At times it feels as though that there are occasions where either I'm not timing something right, or the game just isn't letting me through. On one instance during a scripted escape sequence, there have been some moments where the game's commands could not respond despite me being so damn close to the damn thing. But it also could just be me sucking at platforming. One thing I gotta point out though, as a standout, is the bosses. They're really fun and all have their own unique movesets, and ways to take it down. The Kiki-Yaon boss fight, for example, starts with a fun chase sequence, and then leads to a boss fight that has you taking out specific targets as the boundaries close in on you every time. Adding to the intensity is the amount of enemies that go on while you're trying to take out the weak spots. My only issue is that I feel like the bosses are pretty much piss easy. There really isn't a boss fight that I could say was really challenging, aside from the final boss, but more on that later. The only times where I truly die is if I get careless or I'm an idiot and get myself killed despite all that. Solid boss fights. All in all, ZAU's gameplay is a ton of fun and a good mix of Metroidvania mechanics and fun combat with some slightly iffy platforming. But that's not the most important part of this game. It's the story that this game provides and hits you in the gut with. ZAU's story is easily the best part of the entire game, as it's one of love and loss, fathers and sons,
and the foresight to retain international merchandising rights.
Shut up, Peter! Anyway, as usual, I will be talking a lot of spoilers during this whole discussion, so if you don't want to be spoiled, here's the time code. But if you don't care, then you can just continue on. Anyways, let's get into this. So, initially, I wasn't sure how to tackle this part of the video, mostly because it took me a bit to process the story and get me to arrange my thoughts a little bit. First off, I will say the voice acting across the board is absolutely stellar, especially Abubakar as ZAU. He does his absolute damnedest to give a convincing performance about a grieving man who's trying to accomplish the impossible, all in the name of his father.
Kalunga, God of death, hear my plea. Kalunga, God of death, come to me. Kalunga, God of...
ZAU's character is an interesting one because he has aspects of the stages of grief baked into the game. The way he lashes out when he's told to stop by Kalunga, how he's determined to help others in spite of the odds being told by him, and all while that's going on, he still shows he has a good heart and is willing to do his best and show compassion, despite being a little bit naive at times. And that's what his character arc consists of. It's one of service and compassion. Despite his hurting heart, he continues to commit to his service and showing compassion to others, all while Kalunga continues to watch him grow. Every person he comes across in the story while finding the Great Spirits is facing either a similar problem that he is, or a other completely different familial problem of their own that he needs to help solve. This in turn gives him a broader point of view on his main goal, and it all culminates to the final act of the game, which I will be talking about now. Once you take out the final Great Spirit, Gagoriv, and have a pretty touching scene involving him and his father.
What has happened to you? Parents and children, they fight. It is the way of things. But you will find no shame here. You did not cause this to happen to me. Time did. Let the pain go, Totowango. Let the anger go. Be at peace with me. Be at peace.
All of a sudden, the main story cuts, and you go back to Zuberi. It turns out that his father was never able to finish the book before he passed. You then go explore the house and find what I can only assume is Sweet Baby Inc.'s only contribution to being a part of this entire game.
My dear little Ozzy. Baby Ngina bought this in the hospital shop the day I was born. It's been with me ever since. She called it my guardian spirit, offering protection in life and beyond. Sweet baby. I wish you were here now. She'd know what to do.
I know it's very likely that this is just a coincidence, but I'm sorry, it's way too damn convenient. You then head into the room where your father's coffin resides and talk to Zhao's mom, and how he was never able to finish the book, and the voice acting here is really good.
When I said I wasn't ready, I know he is gone. It's just, I don't think I'm ready to. The world continues to spin, but there is a part of me that feels this wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't how the story should have ended. It wasn't supposed to end this way. I can't. I feel so lost.
When we found out we were having you, we were terrified. We read all the books, spoke to all our family, our friends. But how can you be prepared for a child before you have even met them? Oh, we felt lost to Zuberi. But then, your Baba turned to me and I will never forget it. He turned and said, every story begins at the end of another. I looked at him. This man has lost all sense. This is what I thought. But in what he said, it comforted me. I understood a little more. Every story begins at the end of another.
Every story begins at the end of another. The main tagline of the entire game. Zuberi hugs his mom, walks out the door, and heads back to the book, as he knows what he has to do now. We then cut back to Zhao as he goes back to the beginning area of the game and goes to the land of the dead. And what follows is, honestly, the best part of the game. Also, the music here is top-notch. Kalunga, as Zhao runs through the land of the dead, tells more about the background of it before they reach their final destination, and we get to learn the truth.
It is peaceful here.
That is because your heart beats with peace. It sees no more anger, no more fear, no more sorrow. Your heart beats with your ancestors now. Peace. You see it now. I know you do. I ask you now, Zhao, Shaman Abamandla, are you truly ready to perform your duties as my son?
Baba, I am.
Then show me. Show me you are ready.
That's right. You were never speaking to the god of the dead. You weren't followed by death's grasp or anything like that. It was only Zhao's father following and protecting his boy until the end, where he had one last task. Baba is the final boss of the game, and it's admittedly a pretty fun boss fight, and a nice mix of all the boss fights that you fought before, and even has a second phase, which I actually really liked more than the first one. What follows is the best cutscene in the game, and I'ma just let it go.
Oh, my Baba. Baba yangu. Baba yangu. Baba yangu.
You truly thought you could summon and barter with death itself. So headstrong, so defiant. Oh, my son.
Did I make you proud of me, Baba? Are you proud of me?
I have always been proud of you.
I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
What are you sorry for, my boy?
For feeling angry. Scared.
ZAU, healing can only begin when we have conceded to our emotions. When we do not hide them. When we do not ignore them.
But I could not save you.
You could not save me from my fate, but you have saved many others from theirs. The path you have walked has been one of service and compassion, and that is all I could ever wish of you. A lion's heart swells with pride as they watch their cub roar with might.
Papa, I love you.
I love you too.
His dad is finally able to rest. Zuberi finishes writing the book and closes it up with a smile on his face, and then it ends. ZAU's entire story, and by an extension, Zuberi's entire story, is one of acceptance. Not specifically grief in a sense, but also acceptance of his father's death, and how he can now move on knowing that he was always there, and ZAU can now fulfill his duties as a shaman with the weight of grief off of his shoulders anyway. This story is so incredibly well written and so well told that by the last cutscene, I legit cried a little. It legitimately was so heartwarming. It's astonishing how well written this game is, and it only furthers my confusion. Why does it confuse me? Well, it's because this game is so well put together, and I loved everything about it, but I'm shocked that it's in collaboration with the company who goes door to door threatening shareholders to agreeing with their ideals or else get canceled for it. So, with all this in mind, I presented myself with a question. If you mentioned the whole thing with Sweet Baby Inc. while talking about this game, why should anybody be interested in buying the game if they won't be able to based off a principle? And I think my answer to that is, you shouldn't. I think I love it more when I talk about games that I love, and then people tell me they buy the game as a byproduct on seeing my passion for said game. Some of the best interactions that I've gotten from doing this whole content creation thing is having been told that someone buys the game not because of the game itself, but because of me and my passion for it. And you know what? I'm okay with that. More than okay with that even. And that's why I'm talking about this game and how much this game made me happy, because I was passionate for it. And how it hurts my soul that it got the reception that it did. The Sweet Baby Inc. drama, the Twitter activists acting like they do, everything was working against it. Which is unfortunate, because I see a game with a lot of heart from a man who decided to pour it out for the whole world to see. And honestly, I'm glad it exists, because nowadays, I choose to celebrate the IPs that we have now. Because we don't know how long some of this will last. And to you, Abubakar, if you happen to watch this, you did good. You did damn good. Hello everyone, Future Spectre here. After my initial recording of the script for this video, the Iron Lords podcast had their episode of them talking to Abubakar about his history with game development and working with companies like EA and Sweet Baby Inc. Come to find out that both EA and Sweet Baby Inc.'s involvement not only was rather small, but they also allowed him to have full creative freedom over his game, and how he wanted to tell his story of grief. The only occasion when Sweet Baby Inc. was involved in any way was structure, but that's it. Everything else was all him, and while this made me happy to hear, it was also that, going back to that podcast episode, that I was conflicted with how I was making this video. It was through this episode and through Abubakar's words that I remembered what's most important about this channel and what I do. I remembered that this was about celebrating an art form, and celebrating games that deserve it. Abubakar reminded me of this that day. I now had more clarity than I ever could hope for, thanks to these lovely gentlemen. Massive shout out to Iron Lords for their phenomenal talk with Abubakar. I'll be linking that in the description below so you can see it for yourselves. This has been Future Spectre. Now how about we wrap up this video, yeah? And that is my love letter to Tales of Kenzera, ZAU.
So the reason I'm here tonight is because with the love and support of a lot of people here, I'm going to take another big risk and I'm going to show you what we've been building. I'm going to offer you this game, a game from my old man. I hope you like it.
Oh, and one more thing. Always remember, hug your loved ones. Because you never know how much time you have left with them until they're gone. Love your families. Thank you for watching.